Yeah, and you mentioned DAWs earlier. Like, a lot of people say it doesn't really matter what DAW you use. Do you have an opinion on that? Are there some that are better than
Yeah,
others in certain circumstances?
I think that the digital audio workstation, which is what a DAW is really it's a recreation virtually of what we used to do with the mixer. And just like the question would be asked back in the 80s before DAWs, let's say, well, what mix do you really prefer? It's a matter of your preference, you know. The DAWs themselves, for me, it's all about editing. You know, I come from the school of when I had to assemble things. And really, audio editing is almost like if you make the analogy to painting, the work's not in spraying the paint. The work's in preparing.
Hmm.
So prepping a job is where a lot of the real heavy work is. Spraying is staying
Right.
there, just and it's rewarding because your preparation work made the job come out good. But you prepare it not real good, and then you spray, and then you see edges now or bleeding over to others. And in audio, that also happens where you don't check your rhythms, you don't check your pitches, you stack things, and now they sound. And typically we're mixing for a fifth grade level listener, not to diminish the education of anybody who's listening, but it's like technically they don't understand what we do.
Hmm.
All they know is it sounds good or it sounds bad.
Hmm.
And we know as technical people, if we can be superior to that fifth grade listening level, that for sure will have a good sounding product. So as far as doors go, do you have a DAW that's serving the purpose you've set out to record with? For instance, are you alone and looking for sounds, and are you a self creator? Are you going to be programming your drums and your bass and your synth parts and recording minimally, let's say live sounds like vocals and stuff? I don't really think that there's a door out there that equals Logic,
Hmm.
especially for the money. Coming with over 50 gig of license free sounds and amazing abilities to just modify
Yeah,
things.
I've used several different, and Logic's definitely my favorite because that's a lot of what I do. I do all my own
Yeah,
sounds and
but
programming and everything.
it's not better for any other reason but the workflow.
Hmm.
The workflow preference for me with a band would be Digital Performer, only because it does not discriminate track type. It could be a band that's a full blown band, bass, drums, guitar, vocals, background, saxophones, and then now synthetic sounds, MIDI instruments stacked. We're going to trigger drums to stack onto acoustic drums, whatever. That program's set up brilliantly in that everything's very, very linear. Everything's in the same window, not like a program like, let's say, Logic, where you treat your audio differently than you treat your
Hmm.
MIDI.
Right.
That becomes to me a frustrating aspect of Logic if I'm in that genre of record.
Hmm.
If I'm in MIDI recording, Logic is such a great tool because there's unlimited quantization. You can
Hmm.
undo, redo. It's brilliant, it really is. So I think it's depending upon where you want to be. Then there are people that read about things like, oh, the industry standard Pro Tools, or if you're in PC, Cubase, developed by Steinberg, and again, they're all workflow preferences,
Hmm.
and you have to say to yourself, for what I'm doing, is this the easiest way to do it? And some people learned a more difficult way to do it, and they're more adverse to changing their way. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a little bit of a learning curve when you have to have a new DAW because everything's
a-
not quite where you're used to it being
absolutely.
in different places.
But isn't that the case if you fly to a state and you rent a car?
Hmm.
There's a little bit of a learning curve. Where's gas cap release? Where's the? I did it the other. I went to New York. I'm like,
Yeah, you gotta sit there
I
for
got
a
to put
while,
gas in it. What's going on?
especially for someone like me who hasn't owned a car that was made this century yet. So it's
Yeah,
like you get a
right.
rental car, you're like, what is this spaceship? So
Exactly. You're like, well,
don't know
and
anything.
it's like, I just borrowed my parents' car, my mom's car. And it's like, I went to put gas in it, and I'm like, "Where's the gas cap?"
Hmm.
And you got to look at the little gas. Oh, it's that way. And then when you get out of the car, you open the hood. Like, somebody stole the cap. No, it's capless. They don't have caps anymore. They just shutters that just close it. And so those are so insignificant to the main point of
Hmm.
putting gas in the vehicle. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're just little hiccups, and I think that's the key: is learning in a more generic way, so you're not pigeonholed into just working this program.
Hmm.
How many people who still they were taught or they self-taught on a certain program still stay away from certain knobs and buttons and areas because they're like, oh, I don't know about that, but if I don't touch it, I'm cool.
Hmm.
that should not be the case. You should understand that and then explore other ones to understand where your strength would lie for your preference, depending upon what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So just like what you said, you can work with Reason, you can work with Cubase, you can work with Tools, you can work with Performer, and then work with Logic. And for what you're doing, Logic is the best choice. Why? Not because it's better or worse, but it's got the vehicle, it's got the tools you need to work efficiently.
Hey, if you got value from this video, feel free to drop a like. If you're looking for a proven step-by-step process for consistently producing pro quality music from home, then just grab my free rapid song finishing checklist in the description below. Also, if you're just looking for more tips and tutorials on how to produce pro level music from home, then just check out my playlist or video on the screen right now. All right, have an awesome day and keep creating.